Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Mhm.
Good morning, Andy.
Good morning, Ken.
It works. Very good.
Yep, I'm just watching people log in.
You're gonna be the only one on video? I can join you.
Well, so far.
Beth is brave.
Hi, Beth.
Join you, Beth.
I don't see my partner in crime yet either.
Is that Brian doing it with you?
Yes.
Excellent. I don't remember your schedule. Is this the first one or
This is the second.
second one? How'd it go so far?
So far so good.
Good.
Good morning. OSHA Marin is on the line with you, testing our audio.
I can hear you.
Great. Thank you. Going back on mute.
Is that Tim?
Yeah, that's Jim.
Tim is here as well.
And Tim and Masha and Patty, and we're expecting a few more.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Most of the there's Brian. Now I can relax. All right, I think I'm going to start on time since you guys are so prompt. This is Andy Paller. I'm here with Brian Hayden. This is the second, get rid of those beeps. This is the second of our benchmarking dashboard training Zoom call. We probably won't take the whole 90 minutes, but we're going to cover a lot. We're quite excited at what we have, but I'm going to do just a little bit of background and context, and then hand the call over to Brian, who will walk us through the dashboards. As long as time accommodates, we will we welcome questions during the presentation, but I am going to ask folks to mute your connections for when you don't have questions. Otherwise, we get a lot of nasty feedback, and there are some 20 JCCs on this call, so that's a lot of static. We're excited about the dashboards, which were developed in response to what we've been hearing from all of you over the past couple of years, a desire to be able to have more access to your data, to be able to dig into and better understand some of your findings. In the past, JCC that wanted to look more deeply into their numbers would have to reach out to JCC Association. You're going to be able to do that directly in most cases, which is really exciting. You'll have the ability to drill down into your data, to slice and dice. Although I will note that we are not sacrificing confidentiality in doing that. So, for example, JCCs have frequently wanted to look at different staff responses by department or member user responses by type of program. For any category with less than 4 or 5 responses, you won't be able to see those data. So we're trying to protect confidentiality while giving you the ability to look into your data more deeply. And you'll see when we get in that there are 4 years of data. We've included everything going back to 2012. So those JCCs that have participated actively will be able to see lots of data. One of the fun features we've added is the ability to create your own peer group. So we have standard peer groups based on how big your operating budget is, but you can develop your own your own peer group for comparison in the dashboards. So that's also exciting. A reminder, the dashboard replaces that 90-page PowerPoint presentation that we all loved so much and depended on so much. So we on the JCC Association side and you on the JCC side will all be adjusting to how do we use the dashboards to drive our understanding of the data and to help us make decisions about what actions to take moving forward. It'll be the primary resource during the consultation process. And it's, by the way, updated in real time. So if you see any data errors from your JCC, let us know. We can update those. Once those changes are made in the database, they automatically get carried into the dashboard. So they're always current. The last 2 things I want to say before turning the microphone over to Brian is first, we have, as of this morning, about 50 JCC registrations for the dashboards. If you have not yet registered, please do have individual staff go to https://benchmarking.jcca.org. They'll enter their name, their email address, their desired password, as well as the JCC that they are representing. That's the first step of the registration process. So if you haven't done that, or members of your staff haven't done that, you can go ahead and move forward. The second thing to note is that The dashboard is not yet live. We are working out a last group of issues. So don't be frustrated when you complete that process and you still can't get into the dashboard. You'll receive a follow-up email that says your registration has been approved. At that point, you'll be able to access the dashboard and your data using that same URL. Any general questions before I turn this over to Brian to walk us through? Okay, so Brian, I think you're up.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Let me share my screen. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay. So now you all should be seeing the logon screen to the dashboard. If you've never seen it before, ta-da, here it is. So this is the first place you'll go. I'm on a development site right now, but if you go to the website that Andy just gave you, this is what you'll see. This is the link here that you'll want to click on if you have not registered. But I have registered, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Okay, so here's the first screen that you will see. It is the welcome screen. We've got a message here that I'll walk you through in a second. But I also want to orient you to the navigation options that are relevant really throughout the dashboard. So going across the top of the screen here, you see.
Enter your meeting ID.
Welcome. So across the top, you'll see three configuration options here.
ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound.
Joanna, if you can mute yourself.
I just did.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so these three options will be relevant throughout all of the dashboard. So the first thing to note is that since I'm, one of the administrators of the project, I have access to everybody's site. That will not be the case for you when you log in. You will log in to, of course, your specific JCC's results. So just for the purposes of today's demo, I am going to pretend I am from the outstanding JCC in Hartford. I'm picking Hartford because I know they've been in benchmarking for many years, so there's several years of data, and I know they have participated in the staff survey. So, when I get to the staff survey part of the dashboard, I want there to be data to show you, so I'm picking them. The next drop-down option here is for peer groups. So you see some usual suspects here. You see our lettered peer groups, which correspond with sizes. So you see peer group A, and B, and C, D, and then the database. Then you see this thing called test group. I'll talk about that in a second. If I go back to this welcome menu in the second paragraph here, it talks about our peer groups. So it says you're welcome to pick actually one or more peer groups, and it gives you the cutoffs for the different size-based groups. And then it also says you are welcome to pick a custom group. So I'll show you how to do that. The first thing I'll note is, in this screen, you can see I can pick up to 3 peer groups. So just for simplicity, I'm going to pick C for now. But then if you want to do a custom peer group, you'll come over to your name, and you'll see this button called Manage Peer Groups. So you'll recall in the peer group list, there was a group called Test Group. Well, this is a group that I had made up before. I could pick a different group. So maybe I did that too quickly here. Let me hit cancel. I can pick a different group by clicking on the plus sign here. And now I see a window with all of the different communities that are in benchmarking. And maybe I would want to pick the communities that are near me. Maybe I would want to pick all the JCCs that, I don't know, like maybe I know the execs, or maybe I know that they're in a relatively suburban location like my JCC here is, or urban, or whatever. Bottom line is, you can pick pick your own group. You can pick as many or as few, I think as few, I'd have to check on that, but you can pick as many JCCs as you want to be in your peer group. You pick a name for it, and then you'll hit save, and that peer group stays in the database. Sorry, it stays on the dashboard for as long as you would like. Later on, if you want to change the name, you can do that. So this one was called test group. I can call it Brian's test group. This is only for me. No one else sees it. So now you can see it's called Brian's test group. If I want to get rid of the original one, I can just hit the trash can icon there. So this is a handy feature for creating custom comparisons for you. The next window across the top of the dashboard is the year selection. So we went back into the archives of benchmarking and loaded all of the years of data going back to 2012. Okay. So any year that you've participated, obviously if you select these years, you will see your results. If you pick a year that you didn't participate, you'll still see the peer group results for those years. You just won't see any of your results. A quick reminder that is mentioned here on the welcome page. Starting in 2015, we only did user and staff surveys in the odd years. So if you pick 16 or 18, don't be alarmed if you don't see user or staff or board surveys in those years. Okay.
I think we may have
So
started
once you
in 2013, actually.
Oh, did we? Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Once you make these selections up here, they are relevant for, or they will inform every single chart that we look at. You're welcome to change these at any time, but no, as I say, they affect all the charts. The rest of the welcome page here explains some, I think, cool new features that I will show you as we're walking through the dashboard. So I'm not going to go point by point at this point.
And just an additional note, you don't have to go back to this welcome page. That bar at the top will be visible everywhere throughout the dashboard. So if you're looking at programs and suddenly you're looking at day camps and there are a couple of JCCs who you want to compare your day camps to, you can, at that point, change your peer group or create a peer group.
Yeah, correct. So I'm moving on to the summary highlights tab, and this is one of the quirks that we're still working out this week. This one page has a lot of calculations on it, so it's been taking too long to load. But in a second, you're going to see two tables. Okay, so one of the tables will show you how your results have changed over time. So more specifically, it's going to show you the 5 metrics that have improved the most in percentage terms between the years that you've selected here, and the 5 metrics that have gone down or gotten worse the most in the time periods that you've selected. So think of it as top 5 and bottom 5 metrics. So this is that table. You can see for Hartford on a percentage basis, they've seen nice improvements in between these 2 years in some of their financial measures. And then at the other end of the spectrum, looks like they've had some challenges on the board side with feedback from board members around being engaged and being involved in strategy. I'm not going to click it right now, but I could look at these results over a longer time period by simply going down and saying selecting 2015 or 2014. If I did that, this column here will repopulate as well as the increase column, and we'll see a fresh set of top 5 and bottom 5. The second table compares your results for the most recent year that you've selected to the peer group that you've selected. So we went through the bazillion metrics that we have in benchmarking, and we picked the 17 top metrics, if you will. And they're organized here in topical order. So the first set of metrics here are all financial. Your operating margin, some of the profit margins from core programs, fundraising. We've got some user feedback scores here, your user net promoter, number of programs, etc. Then we have some staff measures next, and finally we close with some board measures. We're comparing the peer group to yours, and you can see the difference. So the point of these two tables is really to help you do a couple of things. Number one is, I think there's like 75 metrics on the dashboard. We don't want you to have to go through 75 different measures to start to get an understanding of how your JCC is doing. Are we getting better? Are we getting worse? Where are we improving? Where are we struggling? So this should give you a sort of like your results at a glance, your most important results at a glance. And secondarily, and related to point number one is, we hope that the entire experience of going through the dashboard enables you or facilitates you figuring out, like, what do you want your action plan to be? Veterans of benchmarking have heard us say many times, we hope that this is more than interesting. We hope it's not just sort of an interesting read that you spend a half an hour on and you never look at again. We want to help you formulate an action plan. Maybe this would inform your strategic planning process. Maybe it would inform your budgeting process. So this summary highlights page is just a way to start to wade into your results so that you can develop that action plan. Let me pause here and see if there are any initial questions on what we've reviewed in the executive summary thus far. Okay. There's one more page here that we have not yet built out. This is going to be a static page, but we have gotten very positive feedback in the years past about the 4 or 5 slides in the old PowerPoint report that showed our statistical correlations. What sort of things seem to be correlated with our desired outcomes. We are getting rid of the PowerPoint, as Andy mentioned, but we want to bring over some of those graphics and relationships so that they're handy and accessible at the dashboard. So that's what'll go there. Now I will dive into all
So
I
have a question about the correlations, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
Okay, thank you. So the correlations that you're showing there are from the entire database, as I understand it.
Correct.
There aren't correlations among the peer groups or anything like that.
That is correct. That's correct in most instances. What will go on this page are the relationships that we used to report on in the PowerPoint. There were, if you guys quiz me on it, it won't come totally top of mind, but there were a few correlations that I think were related to a JCC's size. So in that respect, Fred, I guess you could say, like, some things might be different for the A peer group versus the D peer group, but those tend to be the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned about in the past, that correlations may be different among size and maybe also among amount and number of activities that or programs that one JCC may do opposed to another.
Yeah.
But anyway, we can talk about it afterwards. I just wanted to clarify.
The statistical analysis that we've done in developing those correlations is based on the full database, so that we're able to say in almost all cases, whether you're small or large, West Coast, East Coast, multi-site or very small physical plant, these associations apply to the results of JCCs and to they're the drivers of success in JCCs. There are always special circumstances in individual JCCs that may influence how those correlations play out in on the West Coast with unions and the costs of compensation that create a different structure than other parts of the country, for example. But the correlations do statistically apply across all the JCCs we've studied year after year after year.
Final point on this topic would be Fred and for others that are interested in this, if there are hypotheses that you would like to explore in the data that might be related to a subset of JCCs, I would encourage you to reach out. And, as much as possible, Andy and I would like to help you get to, find meaning in the data for your JCCs. So open invitation to let us know about those hypotheses you'd like to look at.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet. So I'm going to move us on to the next part of the dashboard. I'm going down the left side here. I'm sure you've noticed that we've got several categories of results. So we're going to start with a review of the financial results, but we've also got data on programs, on feedback from users, feedback from staff, and feedback from your board members, as well as a review of your board practices. So we're starting here on financials, of course, and the first set of, what do we got here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 graphs that we're going to look at are related to revenue and profitability. So let's take a look at how these graphs work and how you can start to drill into them. So the first thing that we can look at here, so operating margin, this is the JCC's overall operating margin. You can see I picked one peer group and 2 years here. I'll just show you how you can change on the fly here. See, now I've added a peer group, so I get Hartford, the C peer group, and the database. I can also add a year. Let's say I wanted to look at 18, so I can add 18 there, and now I should see 3 bars for each peer group. Well, for each sort of data set, if you will. So now I've got 3 years for Hartford, 3 years for C, 3 years for the database. You can kind of go crazy here, adding as much as, almost adding as much as you like. I think we cut it off at 3 peer groups, just so that, the thing is legible. There's only so much real estate here you can fit. And so for simplicity here, I'm going to take some of these off, but I wanted you to see how easy it is to add additional years and add additional peer groups. Let's talk about this menu bar up here for all of the graphs. So each of these can be kind of handy features. You might look at, let's move this. Let's go over here because this one's a little more interesting. So this graph shows program profitability for all my programs, sorted from least profitable to most profitable. So you might look at this and be like, excuse me, how in the world are they calculating profitability? I need help understanding what's in this graph. If you click on the information icon, you'll get a pop-up that tells you more about what are you looking at. This says I'm looking at profitability by program department, which I just said, and it says I can use a filter icon to toggle between versions of the chart that do and don't have allocations. So what are we allocating? We're allocating membership revenue, we're allocating occupancy costs, and we're allocating staff time. Okay, so if I want to take advantage of that, I'm going to hit this filter icon that looks like a funnel. So we're going to reference this icon several times in our tour of the dashboard. It's very powerful, and it gives you in real time the ability to drill into your results and understand them in a deeper way. So when I click on that for this graph, my options for configuring the graph, as it was said in the information box there, I can look at things on a direct basis or an allocated basis. So the first version I was looking at was direct. If I want to look at it on allocated, I just simply select that, and then I hit view, and the graph will repopulate. And now these programs are in a different order. Let's say you're looking at this, and it's frankly just hard to read. You want a bigger version. You can click on this expansion icon here, and there it goes. The graph will take up the full screen. So now the legend is a little easier. Let's say I would like to take this version and print it or save it to my desktop to put into a PowerPoint or a Word file or something. I can click on this hamburger icon, and you'll see there I have lots of choices for that. I can print it from here. I can download it as a PNG file or a JPEG file. I can download it as a PDF so that you can export stuff from the dashboard for use outside the dashboard. Okay, so that's kind of a quick tour of some of the options that you have here for configuring the charts. Let's look at, we'll take a quick sort of perusal here through the data that you can see on this particular tab. So in revenue mix, you see how your JCC's revenue mix has evolved over time. So again, I only have 3 years here. If I add 18, that graph will repopulate. Now I have 3 years. So for Hartford, revenue composition has been pretty stable. Over here we have the old histograms from the PowerPoint report that show how the peer group's revenue tends to break out. So revenue mix is all about you. These peer histograms are all about your peers. So this chart is based on the most recent year, and you can show histograms for all the different categories that are over here in revenue mix. So if I click on my filter icon, I can look at federation support, membership support, or fundraising. So I go to fundraising, for example. It shows me that in this C peer group that I've selected, there are 6 JCCs raising under, I'm going to use round numbers, $1.1 million. There's another 5 JCCs that are between 1.1 and 2, and then there's a couple of folks who are crushing it looks like, with over $3 million. So this is replicating a graph that we used to see over in the PowerPoint report. Last chart down here shows you your operating revenues. So the bars are you. You can see how your revenue has changed, and then the line shows you how the peer group's revenue, the average peer group revenue, has changed. So in this case, you know, Hartford is a little bit bigger on average than the JCCs in the peer group, but the peer group's been catching up. So that's a quick tour of the graphs on this tab. Any questions here while I move us to the next one? Go back down to 2 years. On philanthropy, you can see the amount of, where'd my cursor go? Here we go. The amount of contributed income that you're raising. You can see your fundraising information. These are from the financial accounting tool, right? Then we've got a couple of metrics here from your user survey. So this is the percentage of folks who have given to the JCC. This is the percentage of folks who said that they were willing to give. Since these are the first slides that we're looking at from the user survey, I want to introduce some additional features that I hope you find value in. When you click on any of the peer group results, you will see a list. Right now it's showing everybody because we're checking the data to make sure the data are accurate. But eventually this will just show the top 5 performers in the peer group. Okay, so if you look at, if you're looking at this, and let's say actually Hartford is doing pretty good as compared to the peer group. Let's say you were doing a lot worse than the peer group, and you're like,
is what you're calling that important?
Amy Walden, could you put yourself on mute?
I got it.
As you are looking at this, if you were a lot worse than your peer group and you wanted to know, hey, who can I call to figure out who's doing an awesome job? You can click on the peer group bar, and in this case, you know, Central New Jersey is doing a lot better than anyone else. I can call my friends in Central New Jersey and say, hey, what's your secret? How did you what do you think you're doing that has enabled you to lead the peer group here? Another feature that we think I guess we hope will be valuable for you is when you click on this filter icon, you will see a lot of different ways to filter user survey results. So you can filter by age groups. You can filter by whether or not the respondent was Jewish. I realize this is in here. I'd rather not say it's in here twice. We're going to clean that up. We can filter by members versus participants. We can filter by tenure. So there's lots of different ways to slice and dice. So, you know, like let's say I just wanted to look at the results of my older respondents. So I can click off some of these younger age categories, and I hit view, and that graph, only that graph repopulates. So this is now showing different data. All these other charts have not changed. Okay, so that's almost a limitless way for you to drill into your results. There's one more feature here that we don't quite yet have live, which is when you click on, see, I don't think this is live yet. Yeah. When you click on your results, we'll give you like a quick graph of which respondent types, you know, had the highest scores and the lowest scores. So for all of these different levels, we'll show you at a glance their results for the desired metric. So here, the desired metric would be around, did they donate? In willingness to give, the desired metric would be, did they say they were very likely to give? So just sort of at a snap through all these different cuts at the data, where are you high, where are you low? So that will be, we're very close to having that done, but it's not quite done yet. Just to round up the metrics on this page, you can see the amount that your board is contributing philanthropically, and then you can see the board's median gift. So these bars represent the range of median gifts for all the JCCs in the peer group, and there's also this dot that shows your results. So in this case, Hartford had the highest median board gift. That's why they're all the way at the right edge of this graph. So that's the philanthropy page. Questions on that one? All right, moving on. So the next tab is around program use. Here we're going to see lots of information around our core programs. Sorry, this is taking a little slower. So we can look at program profitability here to pick your program and to pick, direct or allocated. Again, you'll just click on that filter feature. We've got a couple of charts on day camping. We've got a couple of charts on early childhood, so utilization and penetration of age-eligible members. If you want to remember how we calculate utilization, right, you'll just click on the information icon, and there's a description of how those numbers are calculated. We've got a graph here on fitness. So this comes from the user survey. So you may remember we asked folks about 3 different kinds of fitness usage. How often do they take a group exercise class? How often do they work out with a personal trainer? How often are they working out on their own? So you can toggle through these 3 options. And it will, maybe I shouldn't have done that since this page is slow today. You can see how often your users, what did I pick? Workout solo versus a peer group. I don't remember what I picked. The last graph here has to do with after school, your after school program. We just started asking this question, so you will only see data here for 2019. But what we're graphing here is the number of children that you're reaching, or the number of children participating in the program, as well as the child days. So this takes into account frequency of usage too. So those are the 2 data points that we're tracking there.
Brian, I just got a chat question that I think everyone's going to want to hear the answer to. And that's the ability to know when you print a graph what filters you may have chosen. So that's a functionality that we're actually working on, so that the filter selections will show up as a footer on the graph itself.
Yeah, you'll see this kind of blank space down here. We're working on adding in selected filters down here, so you can see on the screen what's been picked. This last tab, the second tab in Program Dashboards, has to do with perceptions of quality. So you may recall in the user survey we ask users of various programs, you know, what'd you think of the program? Rate it on a scale of, there's a 3-point scale, and the options are needs improvement, meets expectations, and truly outstanding. And the different quality attributes that we're looking at are staff quality, program quality, facilities quality, and value. So the first chart allows me to look at quality over time. So you might be saying, well, which quality attribute am I looking at? So eventually that'll be down here in the footer, but you can go to the filter icon here and you select which quality metric you want to look at. So let's say we want to look at facilities quality. So now I can see facilities quality. If I want to see, here's where I can select my program area. So let's say I want to look at it on fitness. So fitness is relatively steady. Early childhood we were looking at went down a little bit. Maybe that would be something that we would want to explore in the data. So this is your quality in one program over time. And then this graph on the right is it's a new thing. It is it's the ability to look at one quality attribute across all of your programs. So you can see on the radar chart here, we've got all your programs listed. You can pick any one of these attributes and see how your users' perceptions compare to the peer group perceptions. So Hartford is the shaded area. You can see we seem to have better perceptions than the peer group in value in special needs, but we're lower on, I'm trying to get trying to get the labels out of the way. We're lower on adults and after school program and aquatics, okay? So this is value across all the different program areas. So if you want to understand, well, geez, I wonder why that's higher or lower, who's giving me good scores, who's giving me bad scores, you can go back in here and start to toggle with age and religion and tenure with the JCC to you know, dive further into the data. Okay, so those are the quality measures. Moving on to user engagement, this slide, this tab, respondent profile, gives you a snapshot of who responded to your user survey in the most recent year that you have selected. Okay, so this is going to show us results for 2019. So I can see whether they were members or participants. Hartford seems like they only sent the survey to members. How many kids did they have living in the house? Gender, tenure, age, distance, etc. Right? All these different ways to slice and dice the data. On any one of these, you can introduce additional filters. So let's say, you know, I wanted to look at children living in the household by Jews versus non-Jews. You know, I can turn these off, and this will show me the graph for non-Jews, and then I can go back in and turn it on for Jews. So lots of different ways, again, to slice and dice these points. To get into the actual results, we'll go over to the User Experience tab. And we've got, of course, our old friend here, the Net Promoter Score. So on the Net Promoter graphs, the top bar is the promoters. The bottom bar is the detractors. And then there are these black dots that show you your Net Promoter Score. So you've got that for your peer group, you and your peer group. We've got the degree to which the JCC users perceive the JCC is contributing to the well-being or the vitality of the overall community. This tends to correlate with philanthropy. and then frequency of informal conversations, which we reference all the time. Again, if I want to see who's doing the best here, I can click on a peer group bar, and I can see everybody's result, or it will ultimately show the top 5 results. Okay. So that's that. I'm going to speed through some of these because I don't know, at some point maybe it gets boring. But membership, on the membership tab, we've got some data from your participation tool. So we've got retention, we've got your census, then we've got some data from the user survey. We've got average programs per member. You'll recall that the more programs people use, the more likely it is that they tend to stick around. And then, we've seen 3 programs. Using 3 programs is kind of like a benchmark for high program use. So this is another way to cut it. How many members, what percentage of members are using 3+ programs? So this is a sort of snapshot into membership. And we've also got a tab on Jewish impact. So we have the percentage of your users who had a score of 4 or higher on the Jewish Impact Index. If you don't remember what the heck the Jewish Impact Index is or how it was calculated, you can click on the information icon and it'll tell you about the specific questions that we asked and our scoring methodology. Then we've got 2 graphs that each have 2 different flavors for looking at the ways the JCC has influenced folks Jewishly. So one is for Jewish participants, one's for non-Jewish participants. We have historically asked about these 5 areas. So one way to look at the data is to show your results over multiple years. So here, obviously, I'm seeing 17 and 19, but there's no peer group information on this. So if you'd like to see peer group information, you can change to the 1-year version of the chart, and it'll redraw here, and now I see my scores versus my peer group. We had to, make these as separate graphs just because it's just too much information to show on a single graph. So hopefully it's relatively straightforward to toggle back and forth. So that's how this graph works. That's how this, whoops, what did I do? That's how that graph works. It's also how the graph on Connections with Israel works. So I've got, again, these 4 areas. This version shows me my results over time, and then I can also look at my results versus the peer group here. Okay. Any questions on user engagement? On the staff, in the staff satisfaction section, you're going to see that this works pretty well like the user experience section, so we can go through it quickly. Again, I see the profile of the respondents to the most recent survey year. Now, if your JCC participates in the Leading Edge survey, you will not see any data here, or you will not see any data here.
Well, if you participated and opted out of the benchmarking survey, about half of the JCCs did both, and half of the Leading Edge JCC said, I don't want to do the benchmarking survey as well. And for that second group, we simply won't have staff data in 2019.
Yeah. Right. So my only point was Leading Edge data are not in the dashboard. But if you pick, even if you were doing Leading Edge, I suppose, if you picked a year that you did the benchmarking survey, like let's say 15, I think you'll see your respondents from 2015 here. So we'll show you the latest year that you've selected for which you have data. Job satisfaction factors, obviously we've done a lot of work through the years in correlating what factors seem to have the strongest relationships with net promoter scores and satisfaction. And so you'll see those graphs here. The extent to which people feel like staff feels like senior management cares, they have opportunities to learn and grow. The executive director has a vision for the future, there's a culture of innovation, and they're a part of a team that is mission-centric. These graphs were all on a Likert scale, which is a fancy way to describe strongly disagree to strongly agree. So as you mouse over these bars, you see strongly agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. You don't see neutrals, and you can basically figure out what the neutral was by wasn't missing. So that's how you'll interpret all of these Likert graphs. When I click on the filter, you're going to see a different set of filtering options because now we're on the staff survey. So I can filter on full-time versus part-time. Or clean up this too. That's an artifact in the data. We can filter on religion. We can filter on departments. We can filter on tenure, and we can filter on reporting level. Okay, so those are all the different ways to slice and dice it. We've also got a number of graphs.
And again, just to reiterate the confidentiality, if you pick a small department or you pick a big department, but only people at a certain reporting level and a certain age, and you wind up getting too small a group of respondents, you will not be able to see those data.
Correct. So several questions are related to talent development, performance reviews, people feeling like they have tools and support to be successful. Okay. We've got a tab on overall ratings, so we have our staff net promoter score, and we have intentions around continuing to work at the JCC. Last section has to do with governance. So when we go into the governance tab, we've got the size of your board, we've got attendance at board meetings, we've got the percentage of board members who are new, the percentage who are young. So that's sort of a snapshot of board comp. We've got graphs on the board's participation in fundraising. So if you were paying close attention, you saw these two graphs were also up in the philanthropy section. We simply duplicated them down here because we thought it was kind of intuitive to show them down here. We've got feedback. Sorry. We've got a profile of the board members who responded to your board survey. And then this is the tab where we have feedback from them. So there's a board net promoter score. And then you may remember that we asked board members probably, I don't know, 12 different questions about their perceptions of the board member experience. So this graph up here shows for the most recent year that you have selected, that was a board survey year, what percentage strongly agreed. If you look at these axis labels and you're like, I don't remember what these mean, or I don't know what MVV is, you will click on information, and here you'll see a list of explanations or definitions. So use MVV means the board uses the JCC's mission, vision, and values to drive decisions. If you wanted to, let's say you wanted to look at one of these in greater detail and understand, well, geez, like in this case, board member engagement seems relatively low. I'd like to see how that's evolved over time, or like who feels better or worse about that. So then you can come down to this graph and click on the filter icon, and you can pick which trait that you would like to drill into, and you can see how it has changed over time. So in Hartford's case, you can see there was a big decline this year. So maybe I would want to know, or maybe I'd want to drill into how that's evolved over time. So these two charts kind of, I think, work in tandem nicely. So that's a quick flyover of all of the data that are available in the chart and all the different ways to slice and dice your results. As I said at the beginning of my comments, ultimately, I hope that you go through this with an eye towards, selecting what are 3 or 4 or 5 things that I'd like to work on. And I hope that you'll find, and I'd ask you to give us feedback on whether the capabilities that are in the dashboard and the layout of the dashboard helps you get to that point, helps you figure out how, how and where you'd like to improve.
Ryan, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So going back to the board survey that you just used as an example, where engagement declined. In the past, we were able to go also to all the comments that were made to see if we could gain some insight from the comments as to why that decline happened. Will we still have access to the comments?
Yeah, that's a great question. You you have, I believe JCCs have already received the open-ended reports from all their surveys. In call it version 1 of the dashboard, we will not have open-ended comments in here. That's something we'd certainly be open to considering in subsequent versions of the dashboard. But of course, everyone still should literally have a report, already have a report with those comments.
Right, and I've shared those with the benchmarking faculty as well, so that they're able to review those comments before coming to town.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Or Andy, final thoughts?
Well, I'll do my final thoughts and then give everyone another couple minutes to let us know if they've got questions. I do want to urge you to register for the dashboards. As you heard a couple times during Brian's walkthrough, there are a handful of things that we have not yet finished cleaning up. The team has been working on this for close to a year. I hope you have a sense of how powerful this tool can be for you. We're all learning it together. That usefulness will, I think, increase over time. The last thing I want to say, and Brian just intimated this, we really do want lots and lots of feedback from you. Give us feedback on this initial training. Give us feedback as you start using the tool. We want to hear, number one, what do you like? What's been useful and how are you using it? What's been frustrating? Share that as well. And because we see this as an evolving tool like the benchmarking program in general, let us know if there's some things that you'd like us to explore in future versions of the dashboard. We welcome those suggestions as well. So any other questions at the moment?
Yes, can you repeat again how you want to have that communication to you?
The easiest is just to email me, and I will compile. I will certainly share all those comments with the tech team and with Brian, and we'll hear it. I mean, we have 42 benchmarking consultations scheduled. I'm sure the benchmarking faculty will leave those consultations with additional feedback. That's fine. But as things occur to you, especially when you're on your own as a JCC looking at the data and you hit something that you get frustrated or you really get excited by a feature, just shoot me a quick email. That'd be the easiest. Thanks, Fred.
Thank you too.
Hey, Andy, I was, the horse is probably already out of the barn, but I was reading the chat comments and I saw that my audio got garbled. Was there anything in particular that got lost? Maybe it's too late, but
I was monitoring that as well. I was going to let you know, but it wasn't that entire sentences were missing. It was just a sort of fuzziness to the voice quality from time to time.
Got it. Okay.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for giving us this time. Do be in touch with any questions, comments, suggestions, and have a great rest of your days.